sometimes you just look in the fridge and there's, you're thinking, what am I going to eat? Do I go to the shops? But you have lots of bits and pieces, and you're trying to figure out, what am I going to do with all this stuff? So you have, there's very, very, very few times you look in your fridge and there's not something that you can't make. But a great dish to have that can use anything is a hot pot. Now what I'm going to do is, all you need is a few potatoes for the top. You could use normal potatoes like I am, or sweet potatoes, just sliced on the top. And once they're sliced on the top, put in the into the oven and just roast and get that nice golden. It doesn't really matter what's underneath it. But so easy to do. I had half a head of celery, so I just roughly chopped it up. I have a few herbs from the garden. I'm using rosemary and sage because I want those kind of more meaty kind of flavors. That's going to give a little bit more body to the dish. Can of tomatoes. From my freezer, I had some flageolet beans. You could use peas, it doesn't matter really. A few bits of old tomatoes, just chopped in half, a bit of carrot, celery, as I said, a few onions. I had a bag of spinach there, so that's going in there. And now what I'm giving the meat of this dish, the bulk of it, is I've used about 3/4 a cup each of 3 different types of lentils. And I just roughly boiled these up all together in a little lightly salted water until they became a little bit tender. I cooked them I didn't steep them or anything, I just, because lentils, you can cook them easily enough without steeping. And beans, you kind of have to soak them overnight or soak them for a few hours, but the lentils are never really a problem. But what I used was a red lentil, a green lentil and a poi lentil. Just mixed the 3 of them together, about a half a cup of each, and the half to 3/4 a cup of each. Boiled until they're tender and have this nice kind of a lentil mix. Just drain it off and put that aside. That's going to create the kind of bulk and bring everything together underneath and give a lovely kind of almost a meaty kind of a texture to the whole dish. So really simple dish. This herbs, garlic are your main seasonings. Coconut oil, I'm going to use half my coconut oil to sweat the veg, but I'm going to keep a little bit back to brush over the potatoes, and that'll kind of put the oil in the potatoes and allow them to go hopefully nice golden. Cooked in a nice hot oven, about 200, 220, 230 degrees then. And then I'll just get on with it. So for this dish, what I'm going to do is, I have kind of a generous tablespoon of coconut oil. I'm going to put half it in there now, about a teaspoon's worth. Don't need much more than that. And now I'm going to put my vegetables in there. I have some old carrots, but it doesn't really matter too much. Some onions and my celery. And again, so much food goes in the bin these days. Pinch of salt in there, and a little bit of black pepper. And it's very rare that you can't use everything. Another thing you could do with this dish very easily is you could add a couple of cans or 1 or 2 cans of tuna in there as well, the small little cans. And that would be great for, you just want to make there's anything can go into this. It's just a bit of a guideline what I have here. So anyhow, I'm going to sweat those and cook those away for a few minutes, just to get a bit of flavour into them. I'm also going to add a couple of fresh bay leaves there. You can use dried ones, doesn't really matter. And just let those cook away for a few minutes. Now if your pan is a little bit on the dry side, you can just add about a tablespoon of water in there as well. Bring the oil steam up and let it cook away. Now in a separate pan, I'm just going to add the remainder of my coconut oil. You might need a little bit more than this, like it's a case of just judging it up a bit. And into that pan, I've just sliced my potatoes. So, I left them on the board on the other side of the kitchen. And all I'm really doing here is trying to coat the potatoes with a little bit of oil, not even trying to cook them or anything. Pinch of salt in there. And just kind of toss them around in that oil, warm it up a little bit. And then it's going to be a lot easier then to put them on top of the hot pot. I'm using my hands there, but it doesn't really matter. You can use a spoon as well. Again, the real point of this exercise is just to coat your potatoes just with a little bit of oil. And it's just going to make it a lot easier when you start putting them on the onto the finished dish. And then back to my hot pot. As you can see, that's just cooking away there nicely, and I'm just going to keep that cooking until I get a little bit of colour into those veg. I'm going to take the lid off now and let them cook away there, kind of more fried. So next up, what I'm going to do is into those veg, I'm going to add my garlic. The reason I didn't add it at the beginning is I never want to risk burning my garlic because it goes very bitter otherwise, I find myself. And also I'm just going to add in those cherry tomatoes I had. Again, whole tomatoes, doesn't really matter. It's, again, this dish is after clearing out my fridge. All the bits of veg into a nice tasty little dish with the pan here. And again, eliminating all that food waste, making a healthy dish and something everybody kind of tends to like. It's a good hot pot. Now I'll have a cook that just for a few more minutes. What I'm now going to do is add in my 1 tin of tomato, just chopped tomatoes. Just rinse that with a little bit of water as well, just to get all of the juice into the dish. Just stir that around for a minute. And now those lentils, which are the main bulk of the dish. 3 types of lentils: a green lentil, a red lentil, and a poi lentil, which tends to hold together a little bit better. And just going to add all those in together now. Now I've cooked those in some lightly salted water, so they're already quite well seasoned. Now if your dish is a little bit dry now at this stage, you could lighten it up just a little bit with some water. And also at this stage, what I'm going to do is add in my flageolet beans. Again, peas will do fine if that's all you had. No problem at all there. Let's get them just a little bit dry, so just going to add some water. And now also what I'm going to do is add my sage and my rosemary. Pinch more pepper. I just taste a little piece there. And now let those all come to a nice simmer. So as you can see, I've got a nice little casserole forming. And now what I'm going to do is just remove my bay leaves now. And as I cover it, they can be a little bit, strong if you're biting into it. And I'm going to take that bag of spinach I had and just pop all of that in there. Again, it's as much about using up what's in your store and in your fridge. Pop a lid on it just to let that spinach cook down, and then just mix it through. So with my spinach, it's just cooking in nicely there. Don't have to cook it much because that's the very last thing you're going to be putting into it. Just have a little check in your seasoning, and if you're happy with your salt and pepper and your seasonings, again, you could use various spices. There's a million things you could do with this. It's just a little idea of how to use up what's in your fridge. I'm going to just flatten it all down. Turn it off the heat. And now it's just a case of getting my potatoes. So there's my spuds. I'm going to add just a little smidge of olive oil in there as well, because I do want to get a little bit of oil on them, just to kind of, so that they're going to get nice and coloured and a nice kind of finish on the top. And they're a little bit of cooking into them, but pretty much they're a raw potato. Now I'm just going to clean around my pot a little bit. With a little bit of a wipe. And then it's just a case of I left the skins on my potatoes. You don't have to, but I just prefer to leave them on. And now it's just a case of building up a nice coating of potatoes on the top of the dish. And because there's a little bit of heat, you're going to find that, and that oil, they're going to be a little bit sticky, and they're going to just hold together a little bit better. So it's my hot pot, the potatoes on top now. And now I'm just going to give a little tiny drizzle more of olive oil just on top. And sometimes it's nice to put a little bit of extra salt on the potatoes as well, just to make them nice. And then that's into the oven. I'm going to put it into a reasonably hot oven, about 220 degrees, until the potatoes go nice and crispy. I'm guessing it'll take about somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour in the oven. And I just let that cook away until the potatoes are finished, basically. But as you can see, just melting the little bit of oil with the potatoes, it just makes them a little bit more easy to manage. And you know, all your potatoes have a little bit of oil, so that should assist them in getting really nice and crunchy. Okay, so that's into the oven. So having cooked this for about 45 minutes in a good hot oven, there we have it, our little hot pot. I'm just going to put a few little bouquet of herbs there on it, just to kind of finish it off. And that's all that's to it. Something that I think most people are going to be tempted to try. And it's using pretty much all of your ingredients that you might have kicking around.